Vance was a well-coordinated woman, mother and wife of Mr. David Vance, a steadfast, hard-working husband who loved and cherished his family dearly. The neighbors in rear view called Clara Vance the Clockwork Mother. Everything about her was synchronized. The way she walked her 7-year-old twins, Leo and Mia, to the bus stop at precisely 7:42 a.m. The way her husband's silk ties were color-coded. The way her garden bloomed in a defiant, weedless riot of peonies. But Clara was a woman built of glass and secrets. Since her early 20s, Clara had lived with a shadow. It started as the hum, a low-frequency vibration in her skull that made her teeth ache. Then came the purple days, named for the strange port wine tint her urine took on when the pain in her abdomen became unbearable. She'd searched her symptoms once, years ago, and found the name Intermittent Acute Porphyria. It was a metabolic ghost, a vampire's disease that stayed dormant until triggered by stress, fasting, or hormones. Most people got stomach aches. Clara got the shadows. She never told David. To tell him was to be broken, and David Vance, a man who designed skyscrapers with laser precision, didn't do broken. So, Clara self-medicated. She stole phenobarbital from her elderly aunt's cabinet. She hid in the dark. She became a master of the migraine line. The week of the tragedy began with a diet. Clara wanted to look perfect for David's firm's gala. She stopped eating, fueling herself on black coffee and the nervous energy of a woman trying to outrun her own biology. By Wednesday, the hum was back. By Thursday, the colors were bleeding. The peonies in the garden didn't look like flowers anymore. They looked like open wounds. When Leo laughed, it didn't sound like a child. It sounded like a recording being played backward at high speed. "They aren't yours," the hum whispered. "They've been swapped. Look at their eyes, Clara. See the plastic." This was the acute psychosis, the treacherous side effect of a liver that could no longer process heat. Her brain was literally being poisoned by its own metabolic waste. In her deluded state, Clara became convinced that her family had been replaced by hollows, demonic automatons meant to spy on her. The night of the killings was eerily silent. David was in his study, leaning over blueprints. The twins were asleep in their bunk beds, dreaming of Legos and Saturday morning cartoons. Clara moved through the house like a ghost. She didn't feel anger. She felt a cold, righteous duty. She had to release the spirits trapped in hollows. She used a heavy, decorative brass mallet from the fireplace, which was a gift from David's parents. David never got the chance to even turn around. The first blow was silent. The second was final. Clara stood over him, watching the oil, what her brain registered the blood as, leak onto his precious blueprint. Now she was done with her husband and went on to haunt her children. This is the part the tabloids would later call the treachery of the lullaby. Clara hummed a soft tune as she entered the twins' room. She didn't see her children. She saw 2 flickering television screens that needed to be turned off. When it was over, Clara felt a profound sense of peace. The hollows were gone. She began to clean. She spent 4 hours scrubbing the baseboards, her movements rhythmic and mechanical. She then went to the kitchen and prepared her final communion, a mixture of vintage Cabernet and a lethal dose of her hidden barbiturates. Clara sat at the dining table, the glass in her hand. The moon was high. She was ready to join the silence. And then the tilt ended. It happened in a heartbeat. The metabolic crisis reached its peak and then broke like a fever snapping in the middle of the night. The chemical veil lifted from her frontal lobe. The oil on her hands turned back into blood. The hollows in the hallway became her husband and children. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was screaming. Clara tried to stand, to run, to scream for an ambulance that would be too late. But the porphyria had one last trick. The same chemical surge that caused the madness now attacked her peripheral nerves. Ascending paralysis. Her legs gave out, then her arms. She slumped to the floor, the glass of poisoned wine shattering inches from her face. the liquid soaking into her hair. She was a locked-in prisoner of her own body, staring at the cooling body of her husband in the doorway of the study. The police didn't find a raving lunatic. They found a woman who appeared to be in a catatonic trance, paralyzed and staring with wide, watery eyes at the ceiling. The juicy revelation came during her second week in the psych ward. A young intern noticed that Clara's forebag, which had been exposed to the sunlight from the window, had turned a deep, bruised purple. The diagnosis saved her from the death penalty, but it condemned her to something worse. Today, Clara Vance resides in a state-run forensic institute. She is the star patient, because her condition is now managed with high-glucose 4 drips and panhematin. She is entirely sane. She has no shadows. She has no home. She sits in a white room 24 hours a day with a perfectly functioning memory. She can recount every strike of the mallet. She can remember the exact smell of the Cabernet mixed with the iron of David's blood. She is a woman who murdered her world because of a glitch in her liver, and now she is forced to stay awake for the rest of her life to remember it. Truly sad. By the way, this is Static Solved. Stay tuned for more true crime stories like this. Goodbye.